believes that one drop of water can create waves. I mean, she's an inspiration for an entire nation and truly fights for every point to come.
Get ready for one of the most compelling opening round clashes of the entire season. The rest of the tour might want to take notes, because Eala may have just cracked the code on how to secure a victory before even stepping onto the court. During a high-stakes moment in a razor-thin set, with the scoreboard deadlocked at 3-all and every single point feeling like a grueling tug-of-war, she tapped into a mindset that turned the tide. She later shared that she simply reminded herself to breathe and relax, realizing that regardless of the final outcome, tennis had already triumphed and she could walk away proud of her effort. That mental release gave her the freedom to play without fear, sparking a brilliant run where she swept the final 3 games to take the match. It was a brief reflection, but a deeply telling one, revealing a level of emotional maturity and poise that many veteran players spend their entire careers trying to find. While the weight of expectation crushes others, Eala is figuring out how to channel that pressure into pure fuel. Meanwhile, waiting on the other side of the net is a competitor carrying an immense emotional burden. Oleksandra Oliynykova comes into Strasbourg under a cloud of intense scrutiny, tension, and relentless drama. From refusing to participate in post-match handshakes to openly calling out elite players, she has made headlines while simultaneously fundraising for military drones, all while preparing for tournaments in a homeland constantly threatened by airstrikes. She competes with an undeniable fire, raw emotion, and fierce bravery. Yet, that very same intensity can sometimes double as a vulnerability. A clever opponent with the right tactical plan can slowly weaponize that emotional energy against her. And Eala, currently holding the world number 42 spot, looks uniquely equipped to execute that exact game plan. Composed, methodical, and finally finding her footing on the red dirt, Eala steps into this battle with a quiet self-assurance and plenty of momentum. This opening round matchup at the 2026 Strasbourg Open carries an almost cinematic level of drama. On one side, we have Eala, the 20-year-old rising star from the Philippines who has spent years sharpening her skills under the watchful eye of the greatest clay court champion the world has ever seen, Rafael Nadal. Facing off against her is Oleksandra Oliynykova, a 25-year-old competitor from Kyiv, Ukraine, a city where mornings are routinely shattered by air raid sirens and falling missiles rather than peaceful silence. But Oliynykova is stepping onto the court with much more than just a tennis racket in her hand. She is bearing the emotional weight of a nation in crisis. She has emerged as one of the most passionate and vocal figures on the tour regarding the ongoing war, even helping secure funds for defense drones while continuing to travel and play under unimaginable stress. Breaking into the top 100 at the tail end of 2025 wasn't just a career milestone. It signaled the arrival of a competitor forged in hardships that stretch far beyond the lines of a tennis court. Earlier this year, she made her debut in the main draw of a Grand Slam at the Australian Open, proving to the world that her fierce determination belongs on the sport's biggest stages. Currently sitting at number 68 in the rankings, Oliynykova travels to Strasbourg following a respectable performance at the Italian Open in Rome, where she pushed through to the round of 32 before bowing out to Czech standout Linda Noskova. However, that particular defeat exposed
matches to
a
center
vulnerability.
court because of Eala's
Noskova
global
completely
following,
dictated
because her
play from
games
the
were
back of the
drawing
court, controlling the tempo of the rallies and highlighting the difficulties Oliynykova faces when dealing with heavy, aggressive hitters on clay. Even with a strong run on the dirt earlier this spring, which included a trip to the finals against Eala in March, she clearly found it tough to withstand
completely
the nonstop
overwhelmed,
pace and
as
depth
if she had
arriving
stepped
from
onto
across
the
net.
wrong court at the wrong
This is
turn.
precisely what makes this impending matchup so captivating when you pivot to Eala.
Brutal
In her
6-0
final tune-up
bagel,
tournament
35
ahead of
minutes
Roland
of
Garros,
complete tactical
the
drama,
Filipino
closing the
prodigy
set with
opted to
another
test
commanding
herself
hold.
against a
6
formidable
straight games
Strasbourg
with
field.
Abom.
Despite
Between
her
sets,
limited mileage
Freck
on clay
regrouped,
courts,
adjusted her
her
return
spring
position.
campaign
Champions.
has been a bit of a ride
3
so
straight
far,
set victories.
marked by early
One
departures in
tournament.
Linz, Stuttgart, and Madrid, though she showed genuine signs of a breakthrough
Three
during
clay
a
court
hard-fought
matches
battle
in Charleston,
against Elena
Stuttgart,
Rybakina
and
in
Madrid
Rome.
suddenly
What makes this scenario truly remarkable is that Strasbourg marks only the
in that
fifth time
moment.
Eala has
She did not
competed in a
fold.
professional
She
main
came
draw
back
on
and
clay.
won. She dismantled
Consider
a Grand
just how
Slam
lopsided
champion
that
in straight
experience gap
sets and
really
became the
is.
first also winning,
Oliynykova
completing
already
what the
boasts
tennis
3
world calls the
WTA
sunshine double by taking
125 titles on this surface, and owns an incredible 69% lifetime winning percentage on clay. She has spent years mastering the art of
itself around
sliding,
that fact ever
constructing
since.
points,
This
and
is not a
defending on the
story
dirt.
about an upset side the
Conversely,
sport can feel
Eala
happening.
is still
And
unlocking
at the center of it
secrets
sits one of the most
surface on
busy doing something
constantly
nobody
adjusting
expected
her
on the other
footwork
side
and
of the same
timing to
complex.
the slower rhythm.
In her
Yet,
very first match,
she is
she faced
stepping right
Jelena
into a premier
Ostapenko,
WTA
of Falenka's
500
half
event
of the
to
draw,
face
and
one
the
of the
tennis
most
world
battle-tested
started quietly
and
doing the
emotionally
it was
driven players in the
Sabalenka's.
draw.
Two
It
players
feels
from
almost too
completely
perfect
different
to be
positions
a
in the beaten
coincidence.
3 Grand
It is
Slam
as if the tournament
champions.
schedulers
Not
knew
one,
exactly what
three,
kind of
when
drama
the
they
cameras
were
were
creating,
still rolling.
or perhaps they
Eala
just
lost.
wanted to spark
But
pure
losing
excitement
it and in the broadcast
Strasbourg right
booths
from
and
day
on
one.
social media,
Alex
something
Eala,
she could
who
not
is
win
still
the
just
kind of
20,
atmosphere that felt
recently
like a
noted
home
that
crowd
testing
in the
herself
middle of
against
Florida.
elite
That
WTA
tension,
competition
that
has
subtle
not
friction
only
between the
sharpened her
queen of the
tactical
sport and the
awareness,
teenage
but has
vision.
also
She
physically
skipped a
adapted her
lower
game
tier
for the
clay
clay.
event in
Tourney by
Catalonia in
tourney,
high ranking of world
setback
number
by
22
setback.
came less than
She's
2
been
years ago.
quietly absorbing the
It was
nuances of the surface, taking in every tough lesson the red clay offers.
expectations,
That
no
development
spotlight.
hasn't always
Just
been
a
obvious
19-year-old
on the scoreboard. But beneath the surface, a real breakthrough has been brewing for Strasbourg. This final stop before the French Open suddenly feels like the ultimate stage for all of that internal progress to come to
100.
light. This
She
has
reached the
transcended the
semifinals,
status of a
where she
standard
pushed
first-round
Jessica.
match. We are watching two completely different life stories cross paths on the very same court. In one corner is a young prospect
in
from
Miami,
the Philippines
and the
pursuing
tennis
her
world has been
ultimate sporting
quietly
dream.
rearranging
In
its
the other
0 in the
stands
first
a
set.
Ukrainian athlete
Most
playing
players
through the
at
trauma
140
of a
in
country under siege. Only one competitor can advance, and that reality
dismantle
brings
anyone
an
on a good
undeniable
day.
tension to the air.
Eala was down
because
4 to
Oleksandra Oliynykova did not arrive in Strasbourg with a clear head or a peaceful mind. Long before her first official ball was struck in the main draw, she found herself at the center of a massive storm that had very little to do with sport. On the morning of her qualifying match against Julia Avdieva, Oliynykova took to
then
social
walked
media
into
to
a
state
round of
clearly that
16
she would
match
not be
against
offering a
Sabalenka herself.
post-match handshake to her opponent. Her motivations were deeply political and intensely personal. Oliynykova directed heavy criticism toward Avdieva for playing in an exhibition tournament in Russia that was backed by Gazprom, the state-owned energy giant widely seen in Ukraine as a major financial engine
was more
for the
than
war.
just another
What
match
really
result.
turned
It was the
heads,
public
though,
confirmation
was the sheer fieriness of Oliynikova's public remarks. There was no attempt to downplay her thoughts or sidestep
been
the
studying his
controversy.
methods since
Her
she was
words
only
carried
12
the weight
years
of
old.
someone confronted by the harsh realities of war on a daily basis. She claimed the event served to normalize the ongoing conflict, fuel state propaganda, and implicitly endorse the
Veteran
violence
adjusted her
impacting
tactics,
innocent people
found her
back
rhythm,
home.
and
To
took
her, taking part in a tournament funded by Gazprom was equivalent to backing the military campaign itself, and she made it clear that such choices would not be brushed aside over time. Regardless of where people stand on her views, one thing was absolutely clear. Oleksandra Oliynykova brings an intense emotional fire onto the court in Strasbourg.
Eala,
For
the 20-year-old
Alex Eala,
Filipina
that
ranked
reality
world number
completely reshapes the nature of the challenge waiting across the net. Accepting tainted money is completely unethical and goes against basic human decency. With that
their
definitive
first ever
statement,
meeting, but from the
Oleksandra
opening game,
Oliynykova
Eala turned it
sparked yet
into a
another
statement.
massive debate
The
throughout
first
the
set
tennis
ended in a
community.
Swiatek,
She made her
coming
position
back from
known that
4
she
to
would
2 down in the
refuse
second
handshakes
42,
with any
facing
competitors
Magdalena
she
Frek
believed
of Poland.
participated in events tied to Russian corporate funding, ignoring what country they represented or the flag beside their name.
She wanted to
The
compete
declaration
there.
went viral
She had been
almost
placed in
instantly,
SAP tournament.
triggering
Both
intense
players were
debates
hitting
among
with the
fans,
same American
players and pundits alike. Yet, for those who have been observing Oliynikova's journey, the move was hardly a shock.
held confidently,
this wasn't just a
broke
passing
again,
moment
controlled
of frustration.
every rally,
It fits
and then broke
perfectly
a
into
third
a
time
larger
before
philosophy that has made her one of the most outspoken and emotionally expressive figures in the women's game.
champion.
10
6 to
throughout the
4,
past year.
6 to 2.
She has consistently called out peers who chose to play in Russian-backed exhibition matches, particularly the Gazprom-linked events held in St. Petersburg. Her public callouts have targeted high-profile Russian stars like Daniil Medvedev and Veronika Kudermetova, as well as rising
separated
teenage
by
talents
24
Mira
hours on the same
Andreeva
court.
and Diana Schneider. Earlier in the year, she similarly declined a handshake with Hungary's Anna
Then
Bonder
she
at the
beat Madison
Transylvania
Keys,
Open,
the reigning
citing
Australian
Bonder's
sports
participation
hierarchy,
in a Gazprom-backed
preparing for the
event
same
in Russia
draw.
2 years prior. Oliynykova even made sure to state
WTA
before the match that she
1000
would
event
opt
held
out of both
inside the not a
customary
tight
pre-match
three-setter,
photograph
not a
and
lucky
handshake at
escape.
the net,
Sabalenka,
establishing her
the
boundaries
defending
long
champion,
before the
the
opening
year-old
serve.
walked into
However,
a tournament
it was her
ranked
subsequent
104, not
comparison
find a
that
foothold
truly left the
anywhere on the
tennis
clay.
world stunned. In a post-match interview, she remarked that taking financial payouts from Gazprom-backed events during an active conflict was morally no different than taking money from Nazi Germany during the Second World
Attacking
War.
Eala's
It
second
was an
serve with the
incredibly
urgency
stark,
and disc 5
emotional
overnight.
analogy that
She became
simply
the
could
first
not be ignored. Whether observers rallied behind her perspective or fiercely condemned her words, the fallout was instantaneous because it showed just how deeply
the stage was the
personal this
Italian
war
Oka
remains for
Pegula,
her
one of the
every
most
day.
experienced
For
players on
Oliynykova,
tour, to
this
3
isn't about
sets in a
politics
match that
bleeding
finished
into the sporting
statement.
arena.
And
It is
Arena
the agonizing
Sabalenka was
reality
looked
of
on
watching
paper
her country
like an
endure
exposure.
devastation while
Number
the
one
rest of
came
the athletic
completely
world
undone while a
carries on
teenager
as
the
if
crowd had
everything
chosen
is
to adore.
completely normal.
That was the like the
And her
Miami
public
run had been
statements
the
didn't stop
anomaly
there.
and Rome.
During discussions at the Australian Open, she
By
reportedly
point,
voiced
she regains
criticisms
control.
regarding world
Events
number
that
one
suddenly
Aryna
shifted in
Sabalenka,
Magdalena Frek's
focusing
favor.
on her
Before we
perceived
get into
political
this,
ties
let
to
me ask you
Belarusian
something. After
President
midnight,
Alexander Lukashenko.
Pegula needed
By that
everything
point,
made in the
it
wild
was
card's
undeniable
favor.
that wherever
That match
Oliynykova
playing out
goes,
beneath the results.
headlines are sure
and
to
the 4-0
follow,
Italico.
creating an
One
intriguing
day it was
question
the
as she
percent
takes
of her
the
return
court in
points.
Strasbourg.
She could not have
Exactly
arrived in
how much
Rome as the
emotional
freshly
weight can a
crowned Madrid.
competitor shoulder before it starts taking a toll on their actual performance. Yet, unlike traditional clay
Former
court
Roland Garros
specialists,
champion,
Eala
a
also
player who,
possesses
in their
the raw
first big
power
tournament
to suddenly
appearance,
accelerate the ball and hit through the court when a short ball presents itself. That particular blend of skills could pose a massive problem for Oliynykova. If Eala can balance steady rally construction
arrived at the
with
Miami
sudden
Open
injections
in
of
March
pace,
2020,
she
think
might
she
just
had to
push the
survive it
Ukrainian
and
into
admitted
the
as
exact
much.
type of uncomfortable match dynamic that has given her trouble all year. Oleksandra Oliynikova's tactical Achilles heel is becoming impossible to ignore. True velocity, assertive point construction, opponents who want to take charge rather than play passive tennis. Those are the specific profiles that have consistently pushed her to the limit, especially on clay where her grinding, defensive style usually gives her an edge. 19, and that is
Returned to the
precisely why
court with the
Alex
same
Eala
calm
stands
intent
out
between the
as such a
greatest clay
dangerous
court
wild
player
card
in
this
tennis.
opening
She
round.
had circled it
Eala
on the
possesses
calendar.
the kind of raw
Good
pace
form.
that can disrupt
She
a
was in the form
counterpuncher
of her
before they can even set up their defensive wall. More importantly, she is completely self-aware that her clay court game is a work in progress. Eala has noted that finding success on this surface demands patience, but she has also stressed her belief that the hours spent training behind closed doors are starting to bear fruit. She noted that she feels physically more robust and mentally sharper than she did 12 months ago, remaining confident that the adjustments she and her coaching team have implemented will soon show up in her standard of play. Those two elements, physicality and mental strength, could very well decide the outcome in Strasbourg.
Spanish island of Majorca, inside a tennis ring on European red clay, and the tennis Marta Kostyuk
She
walked
wants
onto
to
the
drag
court.
her opponents into physical baseline wars, provoke unforced errors out of frustration, and gradually wear down their focus over multiple hours. If Eala allows herself to get sucked into that slow,
Tournament
defensive
director
rhythm,
James Blake had
she
openly
walks right
she
into a
beat
trap.
Daria
But if she
Kasatkina, then
maintains her
Layla
aggression, commands the baseline, shortens the points, and refuses to let her opponent dictate the speed of the match, the blueprint for a victory over Oliynykova is right there. She has all the necessary tools right in her racket. The real test is whether she can trust those instincts under pressure on one of the most demanding surfaces the sport has to offer. That is exactly why this encounter feels so much bigger than your standard first-round WTA 500 match. It features a 20-year-old Filipina sensation carving out her path on the tour,
The tournament
mastering
belonged
clay against elite competition, and carrying the
grinding
pride
through
of
the
the nation,
lower levels of the
all
tour
while
and
going up against one of the most emotionally charged and strategically dangerous competitors rising through the WTA rankings today. Oliynikova's vulnerabilities are out there for all to see, and Eala has been brought up at the legendary Rafa Nadal Academy with the exact clay court fundamentals required to exploit them. Heavy topspin, superior movement, aggression under control, patience paired with sudden injections of power. All the ingredients for an upset are present, but whether she can execute the plan seamlessly is a question that Monday's match will decide.
A genuine
One thing
battle.
we know for sure.
Every play story about a shift, the kind that in recent WTA history of the Grand Slams.
While the
What happened next? 140 in the world to 70 semifinal to a top 5 player.
Over to the tennis world. Does Eala possess the tools to pick apart Oleynykova's clay court game? Or has the Ukrainian's battle-tested determination
execute
made her
the very philosophy he spent in the crowd and the atmosphere and played the match of her life.
Drama,
Break
classic
points.
rivalries,
She won barely
controversies,
after
and
dismantling
inspiring
Eala.
comebacks. Make sure you stay tuned for everything we have coming your way next.